Hey, what's up, Giants fans? Welcome to a very special episode of Giants Talk. We have breaking news brought to you by Toyota. Giants have made a big move, and that, of course, is a trade of their starting catcher and touted defensive wizard, Patrick Bailey. Alex and I will get into that today. I feel like there's a lot to discuss because I, for one, did not see this coming. Before we get started, Giants Talk is presented by Mancini's Sleep World. Mancini's is now the official sleep partner of the San Francisco Giants. Get moving towards better sleep and save up to $1,200 on top brands at the Mancini's Memorial Day sale. We're talking Beauty Sleep Queen mattresses starting at $299 and Tempur-Pedic starting at $29 a month. Stop by or visit online to see what's currently available. Okay, Alex. Patrick Bailey, Giants catcher, the center of a lot of discussion this year and in years past, is now a Cleveland Guardian. Giants received Tugboat Wilkinson and a draft pick, which I'm going to need you to break down a little bit for me how that one works. Where do we start with this? What was your reaction?
Well, I was, Mother's Day weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. I went and
Mother of all trades coming on Mother's Day weekend.
Mother of all trades. I went and was getting some flowers and some bagels with the 2-year-old. So let me tell you, a great time to be trying to confirm a trade is when a 2-year-old is running around the bagel shop. And somebody very nicely gave him a balloon and then it popped.
Oh no, disaster.
It was all hell broke loose. And I'm like, buddy, I'm texting, like, come.
Yes.
So it was these things always come out of nowhere. Raffy Devers happens before Sunday Night Baseball. These things with Buster always come out of nowhere. But that was I have an angel of a wife who I came home and plopped the 2-year-old on her and handed her a bagel and said, Patrick Bailey got traded. I got to go.
This is important.
Yeah. And also I think sometimes I judge these things by my wife, who obviously follows what I do, and but she's not watching every Giants game. I don't think she's watching many Giants games.
Yeah.
But there's certain things that happen where I go like, Patrick Bailey got traded, and she was shocked. So she understands the magnitude just from being around and him being Patrick Bailey for the last couple of years. It's, you can say he's a catcher who's hitting whatever he's hitting this year. He is the 2-time reigning Gold Glove Award winner. He's 26 years old. We had kind of broached the previous 2 podcasts, and this is one of those, informed speculation situations where kind of broached the possibility of him getting optioned. I thought they were, talking about that, headed that way a little bit. I can tell you now, I mean, they talked about it last year. They were going to option him last year when he was struggling. And then Buster does this instead, and it's May 9th, and we've come to learn that he acts with some urgency when he's not thrilled about what's going on out there. And we have a million things to go over, but this is a Saturday morning stunner.
Yeah, absolutely. You were out of the bagel shop. I was in the backyard watering some flowers, just like unshowered and unteeth brushed, and was panicked immediately that we were going to be going on TV or podcast like right away.
You don't brush your teeth first thing in the morning?
It was one of those mornings I got up, I let the dog out, and then kind of followed the dog right outside, and my normal routine got
okay. I'll give you a pass.
But yeah, so where do we want to begin? I think we have a list of immediate questions. I'm sure this is the kind of trade that reactions will continue to develop to. More insights will come out over the next few weeks. But let's start with our 10 immediate reactions, our 10 questions from this.
Yeah, trade. I mean, I've texted with Patrick, and Buster will talk this afternoon. Patrick, he just said he's, I'll use his exact words here. He's very excited. He's closer to home. He said, I'm super grateful for the Giants organization giving me many opportunities to play this game and the incredible support from the fans for me and my family. And Buster will talk at the ballpark this afternoon. But yeah, Saturday morning, hit me with your questions.
All right. Our first question is, of course, Giants centric or Giants talk centric, because why wouldn't it be? Mm-hmm. What does this mean for Alex's bold prediction on March 26th? We did our bold predictions episode as we do every year. And Alex, of course, predicted that Patrick Bailey was going to get MVP votes, plural. We kind of saw that ship had sank, but I don't know. Does this reinvigorate you in any way?
We're alive. American League has a separate ballot. Yep. So we're back in this. I don't know what this means for his Gold Glove hopes. I think it's early enough in the year that he should be able to. I mean, he'll spend most of the season in the American League.
Yeah.
Yeah, different group of catchers over there. He was pretty easily head and shoulders above the National League guys that we know. So maybe that's the interesting thing for Patrick. This goes back to, we've joked about it a lot. Like my old thing, like if this guy just hits 220 with 8 homers, he's a down ballot MVP candidate. I do think it's important to remember, no matter where you are on this, look, he played parts of 4 seasons with the Giants. He was worth 10 wins above replacement. Like this is a first round pick who ultimately gets traded pretty quickly a few years later. And you don't expect guys like this to get traded pre-arbitration from a team like the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
But his rookie year, 2.7 WAR, his sophomore year, 4.3. Last year, even with everything that went on, 3.2. This year, he's at 0.0. And I think some of the defensive stuff certainly takes a hit with ABS. And then just the bat is so far below where he was even the previous 2 years. But that was kind of my whole thing, is if he gets back to being where he was last year, which is 70 WRC plus, like, it's a very valuable player. But
yeah,
the Giants kind of ran out of time, or felt like they ran out of time here.
And there's a lot of elements of that I think we'll get to in discussions further on in this podcast. But I think the offense is the biggest part. Like obviously he's been struggling all year, and obviously if it ticks up just to like league average or a little below league average, he's a whole different player. But we'll see what the Guardians kind of can get out of that. I wanted to throw this in there too, Alex. As a bonus, you also predicted that the Giants would have a top 5 farm system by the end of season updates. Now, this has to boost your chances there.
I think they're headed there without this trade. But yeah, this is the 29th pick in the draft, along with the 4th pick in the draft, along with a prospect. So they might be number 1 by the end of the year.
There we go.
They're you look at what, like, we haven't really had a chance to talk about this on the pod, but like what Luis Hernandez is doing to start off, and they're a lot's going on, but they have that going for them right now. The farm system is going to, I think, pretty easily going to be top 5, might be number 1 or number 3 or something like that by the end of this year.
All right. Counting down to the end of season updates. Our second question coming out of the trade is this as shocking as it seems? Obviously, it's the kind of move that immediately feels shocking. I don't think anyone expected on this beautiful Saturday morning to wake up to a Patrick Bailey move. But now that it's, I don't know, settled for an hour, does it feel like it makes a lot of sense?
I'm not surprised they traded him. I'm very surprised that it's May 9th. I mean, the Devers trade last year was like June 15th. That is early for a big trade. And, I was talking to someone about this yesterday with another team, and it was like, if they get to the point where it's Robbie Ray and Luis Arias, like, when do you pull the trigger on these? And you still don't expect it until like the end of May or June, even if you jump the market on things. So Buster did this extremely early. I think, he's obviously had a rocky year as an executive. Some of the moves not working out. I just think the one thing we've seen with him over and over again is he's going to do this a little bit different than other guys, which is maybe try to build the value back up a little bit, maybe try to scour the market. Maybe a lot of teams will play it safe and just be like, we want to keep the depth for now and see what's out there, and take this all the way to July 31st, or what is it, August 3rd this year, whatever it is. Take it all the way to the end and see who jumps, who gives you a little bit extra at the end. I think Buster, when he decides that a move has to be made, it just has to be made. And we can debate the merits of it. We can debate whether this will work out for them. But that's why I texted some players this morning, and they're like a little bit surprised by this early, but not ultimately surprised, because they kind of got the sense this was headed for a fresh start. For both.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Giants not getting any big league talent out of this deal makes it feel like maybe it's more on the Guardians side, like they want to upgrade their catching right now, early in the season. But I don't know enough about what's going on over there in Cleveland to know, like, even who's he replacing.
It's Saturday morning, man. Figure it out as you go to our next.
That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, at least the Devers move was like, this is for this year. Whereas, I don't know, the only benefit to this year on the Giants side to the Bailey trade is now getting a different bat in the lineup every day in that 9 spot. Or, wow, Could we even have a catcher hitting not in the 9 spot?
Yeah, it's a big shakeup. In terms of just Patrick had been out of the lineup the last few days anyway, but you did see him last night. His last act was coming in defensively for Jesus Rodriguez, which he did twice this week. And I was going back and forth on the option thing and what they're going to do. And one reason I hadn't really been too firm on that was because I do think Tony really liked having him as his late game guy. And, not a late game hitter, even though he's done that a lot in his career, but just having that ability to have him out there late in games. And that you saw, I think the 9th inning Friday was a bit of a mess, but I also think you saw a guy who knew he had to go out there and go for a couple mound meetings. And watching that, I mean, Killian didn't have his command, and they kind of worked their way through that. So that's what he's good at. I think Tony would have liked to have that probably on his bench. And Patrick has the profile right now of kind of a backup catcher type in a lot of ways, which is great defense, good with the pitchers, and doesn't really hit. So that was I think that was where I thought this was ultimately heading, was a lot more time for Suzak, a lot more time for Rodriguez. I really liked the possibility of the 3 catcher thing. But I thought we'd see Bailey coming late in games, but that's, they go in a different direction.
Yeah. I guess that takes us to our third question, which was, does this have anything to do with the 9th on Friday? You covered a good amount of this already just now, Alex, but I kind of want to fold in a different layer here. You've been around for a lot of trades. You've kind of debriefed a lot of trades for this team. Is this the kind of thing where there would have been a good idea in certain people's heads that this was happening during the game on Friday? Or is this the kind of thing that kind of comes together all at once? Obviously, you don't have a lot of details right now. Every trade works a little differently, just in your experience.
Gonna check my text messages. He was told right after the game. So
okay.
This was not a reaction to anything that happened yesterday. This was in the works, and nothing he did on the field yesterday. There was some confusion about how demonstrative he was with the dugout, and I was hosting last night, so I didn't ask anybody what happened there. But no, this was in the works before he took the field. And I will say, I talked to Patrick for a bit yesterday afternoon, and I think I don't know if he was given a heads up that a trade was coming, but I do know he did not expect to be in the lineup. He knew he wasn't in Friday's lineup and did not expect to play Saturday. So whether it was something happened with the roster or whether he had just kind of been told, we're going to figure something out here, and you're not going to be starting a whole lot in the coming days. He had a pretty good idea that this was headed in some direction.
Yeah. All right. Next bullet point here. Next question. Why? Why did Buster Posey move on from Patrick Bailey? We've talked a good amount on this podcast. We've gotten a lot of fan questions asking about why is Patrick Bailey still in this lineup? What value does he bring to the team? We've defended him quite a bit. And then here we are, less than 1.5 months into the year, and he got moved. So why?
Great question. I think they had just kind of reached the end of the line here, and that's obvious, but I think there was a lot of frustration the last year and a half. I would guess that some of the stuff on the last road trip, I dug into the pitch calling thing, and when it seemed like maybe Tony was saying stuff was coming from the dugout, that was not. I mean, that was Patrick calling pitches. When Walker threw all those sinkers, and when Keaton Wynn faced Kyle Schwarber, that was Patrick. And I think there was frustration with maybe if you're not going to hit, like there can't be some of that stuff going on. I think there was a little frustration with his inability to just figure it out offensively. He took a lot of early BP this week, but not necessarily before. And there's a lot on his plate. He's game planning. He's preparing for these games. He catches a ton. His goal every year is to lead all catchers in innings and win Gold Gloves and start as many games as he can. And he always answered that bell, but I do think there was frustration about his inability to figure it out offensively and maybe how much work was going into that. So there was that. And then look, he's a much different personality than Buster Posey. Like Patrick's very laid back. He's generally in a good mood. I think he's, the two most important things in his life are his faith and his family. And that's the same for Buster. But Buster between the lines was intense, and there's just a different intensity to Buster, and I think he just wanted something a little bit different from his catcher, and yeah, I think they just kind of hit the end of the line here. I'll go back to last year. I mean, there were conversations last year about his status, and he got through it, and he wins a Gold Glove and all that. But you look at where they're at, and the other thing I'll say here, we'll talk about who's coming up, but they absolutely adore Jesus Rodriguez, and they're really happy with the Daniel Suzak move. So you kind of get this group here, and it just kind of became a perfect storm of like, well, is this guy really is his role on this team going to be catching one game a series and coming in the 8th inning when you have a lead and being your catcher? Like, is that the most value you can get here, or do you just want to rip the Band-Aid and get going here?
I've always thought it's got to be really difficult for some of these young catchers. The Giants now have had 2 recent first-round pick catcher draft moves that moved on. It's got to be tough for them working under Buster Posey, who's not only one of the greatest Giants catchers, but one of the greatest Major League Baseball catchers. And he's got certain expectations of what he wants out of that position, probably more laser focused on that, whether or not he wants to be, than anywhere else on the field. Seeing that role as like an overall leadership role for the whole team, seeing what he did and what accolades and trophies he was able to bring home to San Francisco. And they haven't really been able to get someone to fill those shoes. Rightfully so. They're big shoes.
Yeah, 2 first-round catchers who have moved on now. And it's, I'd be curious. We can dig into this after we podcast here. Maybe not the best way to spend my Saturday, but I'd be curious how many teams had 2 young catchers reach the big leagues and moved on from them, before they even hit arbitration.
Yeah.
Like, you get a catcher of the big leagues and you get a catcher who's like pretty regularly at, what is he? He's averaging 2.5 WAR in his career. Like, you hold on to those guys.
Absolutely.
So Joey doesn't work out here. Joey's in the other dugout tonight. Patrick doesn't work out here. It is, I think it has to be viewed as a little bit of a failure from that respect, because those are guys you generally want around for a long time. And it's stunning that this is where they ended up. And I think to your point about Buster, like, there's a lot that he's going to be judged on at the end of this year. And there's a lot that he's being judged on now. One important factor here is like, they better get this right. Like, if Patrick goes to Cleveland and becomes closer to who he's been the previous 2 years, and if the league starts to figure out these young guys they have and they struggle, if they struggle defensively, which is going to be key, it's a little bit different to be making the evaluation on like starting pitchers or Devers or things like that. This is directly Buster Posey making an evaluation on his catchers and saying, I want Rodriguez and Suzak instead of Patrick Bailey moving forward. And that is the position better than just about anybody on earth. So there's a little bit extra scrutiny here, I think, for Buster as this all plays out.
We mentioned Joey Bart. Man, this really makes me wish that Joey Bart hadn't gotten pinch hit for in the 9th inning. We had just one final frame of the 2 of them standing next to each other, standing there, last rodeo. But yeah, it is really interesting that it's all played out like this. I don't know if the current Giants catchers who are now stepping up are feeling extra pressure because of this too. And that'll take us to our next one. What's in the mix now for Giants catchers?
Well, Suzak's rehabbing. I would expect him back. Maybe not this week. He was supposed to catch on Sunday. I know Tony said maybe he wasn't going to be ready for the Dodger series. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be there Monday at Dodger Stadium. They do like Eric Haas, who's their backup type. He's the veteran. They love Jesus Rodriguez. Love Jesus. And obviously there's a lot to like, right? But Buster in particular, I think, fell in love with Jesus pretty quickly at the deadline last year. So that's a big part of this. And it's really interesting that, we always think you can never have too much catching, and they haven't really had the right backups behind Patrick. They have gone out in the last 10 months and acquired 2 24-year-olds who now are replacing Patrick Bailey. It looks like they were right with both of them. It's a small sample with both of them. It looks like they were right. I think they're going to get a lot more offense. It's also just a fascinating direction for the San Francisco Giants to be headed, because this is supposed to be a pitching and defense organization. We've talked a lot about how they're offense first at so many spots now. And they did that at shortstop. They go and get Devers and move him to first. And the outfield certainly before Bader was like they're focused on the offense. Even Arias, he's ended up being like a Gold Glove winner at second, but the thought at first was like he can be passable and he's going to be bad at second. So they've been offense first, and now they're going offense first to catcher, which is a position where teams often don't do that. And the Giants had the best of both worlds in Buster Posey, but this is not going to be, no matter where Jesus and Daniel go, they're not going to be Patrick Bailey defensively.
Yeah,
they're just not. And I think you can see it watching games, and that's going to be kind of another fascinating subplot of this over the next 5 months is how does this impact their starting staff? And, what do we see in terms of guys running, in terms of framing, when Logan Webb is back out there, like when he's back to his normal self, like, is he missing those pitches that Patrick was pulling in? He was still able to do that a lot. He still leads Major League Baseball in framing. So this is fascinating from that respect, but they certainly are going to get a lot more offense from their catchers, and they're moving forward with these two guys. They're both bat first. They're good at that. I think it's going to be a bit of a timeshare. I'm sad for us because I love the 3 catcher situation and he's moving around and being like the super utility guy. Maybe the reaction wasn't to Patrick, anything he did. Maybe it was a reaction to Jesus playing right field the other day, and they're like, let's just make him a catcher. But okay. But the other thing I'll say here, the last thing I'll say is there is a catcher from Georgia Tech who I believe is the 4th or 5th best prospect on most boards in this draft. And the Giants have done a lot of work there.
Okay. Wow.
There's, you and I are on team. There's a pitcher from UCSB. That's automatic. Get it done. Lock it down.
Get it done.
But they do like the Georgia Tech catcher.
Oh, it just makes so much sense now that you've said that. Yeah. Okay. Well, my next question was, are there any catching prospects in the system? But I think they have like 1 or 2 of these utility kind of catching and beyond guys. Yeah. And then they're looking at some draft picks.
They're here. Their 2 young catchers are here.
Yes.
Zach and it's Rodriguez. And it is sink or swim with those 2 guys look, I don't know what's going to happen in the draft. We're months away. You never know. I saw one mock draft where this kid was going 3rd right ahead of him. So you never know. And even if they do draft him, it's going to be a couple years. But so it is Rodriguez and it's Suzak for the time being.
You mentioned
a lot behind him. So
you mentioned how this is a offensive boost for the Giants. Kind of the next big question on our 10 questions list is, does this move happen if the Giants team, not just Bailey, is hitting like they should? Obviously, it's easy to hide a struggling bat in the 9 spot when 1 through 8 is hitting like professional baseball players. But the Giants have been among the worst, if not the worst, in pretty much every offensive metric since the start of the year, making Bailey's offense stand out extra than it would in a normal year.
Yeah, I think, somebody, I think some people probably viewed this as like a pro Bailey pod recently. And one of the points I just always wanted to make was that he's pre-arb. He's a 2-time Gold Glove winner. He's generally your number 9 hitter. And if Devers and Chapman and Adames aren't hitting, it doesn't matter. Like it's these guys are making $20-30 million, 25-30, whatever it is this season. So it's up to those guys, and Patrick's there to lead the pitching staff and just contribute where he can. And I think the bat was so low that it becomes a point where you're like, okay, we need more than a 16 WRC plus. Like you need a little bit more than that, more than the 1 home run. But to your point, if they are 2 games under and look a little bit better and the offense looks better, do I think they trade Patrick Bailey on May 9th? I do not. I think if you're headed in the right direction, do I think Bryce is here on Monday? I do not. They were headed in a horrible direction. They're headed towards a lost season. As of Wednesday, they were on pace for 100 losses. So maybe by the time you and I reignite this on Monday morning, they'll be in a better spot. But I think this was a reaction to what's going on. And this has been building. Like I said at the start of the pod, there's a lot of this, but I still don't think you make a move like this if you don't, feel like you're in a really tough spot. And so I think there's been a couple things we've seen this week, which is Buster again, like kind of early in situations, going like, I'm going to rip this Band-Aid off and do this. So I think eventually, if you had asked me at the start of the year what's Patrick's future, I might have said he might get traded this offseason. Like, I could see that. He hits arbitration. If he doesn't hit, they maybe move on and they have the young catchers they like. But to do it on May 9th, I mean, this is a big adjustment for their pitching staff. It is a big adjustment for their game planning. It's a big adjustment for the young catchers who now are tasked with, imagine they do turn this around and they get in the postseason. You're asking Jesus Rodriguez, who has learned on the fly, and Daniel Stuzak, who's a rookie, to do what Buster Posey did.
Yeah, you're asking Daniel Stuzak to be a World Series MVP.
Exactly. So, or just to lead these guys through that. So, I think a lot of this a big part of this is on the shoulders of the entire team that's struggling and led to what we've seen in the last week, like 2 big shakeups.
Yeah. All right. Our next big question. This is kind of an awkward one to have, but we have to have it after every Giants trade or even every time a guy gets cut. Is this, at the end of the day, good for Patrick Bailey? We've seen some Giants players like Kyle Harrison just completely flourish into old versions of themselves. We've seen players turn into better versions of themselves. And then as we sit here playing the Pittsburgh Pirates and see Joey Bart on the other side, we've also seen guys who didn't quite look that different than they did as a San Francisco Giant. So what do you think? What does this mean for the rest of Patrick Bailey's career?
I think this is great for Patrick Bailey. I think there was a dark cloud here. He kind of knew I think he had hoped to sign a long-term extension here at some point and kind of realized that wasn't going to happen. And I think he knew this was maybe headed in a not great direction. And he now goes to Cleveland, which is, I think, about 2 hours from home in terms of flight. Patrick, look, everyone's kids are important to them. Patrick's kids are his life. So he gets to be much closer to home. If you look at his wife's Instagram this morning, she's very excited to have him much closer. I joked about that with him on Thursday. Like, he went down to see North Carolina State baseball. I think on another off day, if he's in Cleveland, he probably flies home for the day to see his kids or has them come up. So I think he's, from a personal standpoint, is going to be happy. And from a professional standpoint, Stephen Vogt signed off on this. I guarantee you Stephen Vogt signed off on this. That's just the way these things work when you're talking about a catcher, and Stephen Vogt is surely excited about it. And one of the people Stephen Vogt is closest to in this game is Craig Albernaz, the current manager of the Baltimore Orioles, the former catching coach for the San Francisco Giants, who is basically like a father figure to Patrick Bailey. So this does not get done if Stephen Vogt and the Cleveland Guardians don't really, really believe in Patrick Bailey. And they do that with the knowledge that they got in large part from Craig Albernaz, I think, who's very close to Patrick as well. So we'll see if they can get the best out of him. But I think just from a personal standpoint, it's a good spot for him. And he has, who doesn't love Stephen Vogt?
Exactly. So Stephen Vogt's very short tenure with the Giants didn't overlap with Bailey's. Vogt was here in 2019. Bailey was drafted in 2020. But they do, as you described them earlier in this podcast, you described Bailey as much more of like a happy, things don't really get to him kind of ball player. And that just screams Stephen Vogt to me.
Stephen's also intense at times. And I think maybe, a little, you're right. But also maybe this is the kick in the ass that gets Patrick Bailey going a little bit. So as far as like, if you could pick fresh starts for him, if you had told me yesterday, like, pick a team for him, my first team probably would have been Baltimore, just to be with Albie, but they have their catchers, they're set. So this probably would have been the second team I put on the board. Other than if you wanted to pick somebody in the National League West, just so we can still face Dodgers lefties.
Man, and we'll talk about that later, but losing him right before the Dodgers series may be the one downside that screams to me. All right. Obviously, a big part of this, we've talked a lot of Patrick Bailey, is what the Giants got back. One of those was a pick, but the other was a fella named Tugboat Wilkinson. Alex, what do we know about this absolutely all-star caliber name player?
I'm going to direct everyone to Kylan Mills' Twitter account. Kylan's doing the great work this morning, our pregame show host of as I'm focused on Patrick and writing a column that'll be up soon and doing the podcast with you, she's digging into Tugboat.
Good.
So gonna pull up Tugboat. Here's what she wrote. Left-handed pitcher, 6'1", 250. That sounds like a Tugboat.
I love him.
So 23 years old, 10th round draft pick by the Guardians out of Central Arizona Junior College. Pitched for Team Canada in the WBC, and per MLB.com scouting report, touts a secret weapon in his arsenal, the Invisiball. The run on his fastball is abnormal.
I watched
Tugboat with an Invisiball, and I think you're all in.
Oh, yeah. I watched a Invisiball highlight reel this morning, and it was sweet.
Who was it Ross? What was Ross Stripling's pitch?
Oh, what was that?
I don't know.
Death something?
The death
ball?
Death ball that he was inventing.
Yeah.
So now we have
we hyped that one up a lot. And
then they traded it.
Yeah, there wasn't
never saw the death ball or whatever it is.
Yeah. So. But yeah, the Invisiball looks awesome. The highlight reel I saw, I think I saw some WBC stuff. I think I saw some minor league stuff. I even saw some college baseball World Series stuff. Just went in a video dive this morning after brushing my teeth. And it looked great. Some of these pitchers or some of these hitters just looked foolish hacking at this thing.
We getting a City Connect Tugboat jersey in 2 years? Is this what?
Oh, put a tugboat in the Cove?
Oh, this is all so easy if he makes it. He's in Double A right now. 6 starts, 1.59 ERA, 36 strikeouts in 28 innings. You never know. He's a Double A pitcher. You never know. But we like the name, we like the numbers, and they've done okay in these trades. Like we see Drew, we see Wade Tidwell, we see Jesus Rodriguez. They've had a pretty good feel for these trades recently.
I would encourage people to go just check out the clip from a few months ago at the WBC. He went 2 innings, 0 hits allowed, 2 strikeouts, and knocked down Bregman, Roman Anthony, Cal Raleigh, Turing, Pete Crow Armstrong, Bobby Wood Jr., and Bryce Harper. Boom, 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 boom.
Look at that guy.
Yeah.
Tugboat.
We love him already.
He looks like a tugboat.
He does.
I think he's riding you can see why he gets the nickname. It looks like we got a little Mustache May action here.
That might just be Mustache Life.
Mustache Tugboat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Obviously the other element is the draft pick. Alex, can you explain to our listeners and perhaps your podcast host co-host why they can trade for a draft pick in this instance?
It's a comp pick, so it's technically competitive balance round A, and those go to teams from the 10 smallest markets or 10 smallest revenue pools. Cleveland obviously qualifies. There's other ways to get comp picks, but I think for Cleveland's purposes, so they had an extra pick at the end of the first round, 29th pick overall.
Okay.
You're able to trade those, which does happen fairly commonly. And the Giants now have the 4th pick, the 29th pick, and the 55th pick. So
all right,
the farm system that is on the rise is about to add 3 of the top 60 prospects in the draft. Also, fair amount of pool money there. They can have some fun with that potentially. We'll dig into that further as the draft approaches. I think it's really interesting from that perspective. But again, you're talking about, I guess, a little bit of a weird thing here, and they have the catchers they like, but this is a win now roster, and I think we did this whole down on the farm segment last night on the pregame show, and we're talking about Luis and Joshua and Johnny Level, and Jonah Cox has been really good in Double A, but you are kind of like, okay, but this is the squad right now. They called up Rodriguez, they called up Eldridge, Suzak will be back soon. There's not a whole lot else coming from AAA other than maybe some pitching depth, some of which I think you'll see very soon in that respect. Just leave it at that. Get to that in Los Angeles. But there's I think from a big picture perspective, like they're in great shape for like 2028, 29, 30 potentially with all these guys. But you're talking down the line.
Yeah. All right. And obviously our final question, the big one that encompasses any move the Giants make, is will they live to regret this? We've seen some of these deals go sideways, both in the sense that guys come back to San Francisco and just absolutely pick on the San Francisco Giants. We've seen guys move on and become touted all-stars. What do you think the legacy of this trade will be. I mean, the first one I'm thinking of, we kind of mentioned it earlier, is they're heading to Los Angeles, where Patrick Bailey has had some iconic moments versus the Dodgers in his Giants career.
Yeah, Tanner Scott's like, all right, cool.
Great.
Not to worry about that guy.
Slick and sound.
Can you hear my dog Robert? He's fired up about this.
Yeah, big Bailey fan.
Big Bailey guy, I guess. It's, I'll go back to what I said about Buster Posey and making this decision and moving on from a 2-time Gold Glove award-winning catcher.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see where the draft picks end up. You hope that the pitcher you got comes up and is a contributor. You hope he's part of the future. You hope that the draft pick becomes very helpful, whether, helping you spread some money around or whether that's just, an actual first rounder that shows up here. Don't have a great record with first round picks recently. And one of the ones who technically has hit is Patrick Bailey, and he's now gone. I think the way you regret this is if these two young catchers they have are solid hitters, but not game-changing hitters. And if you have defensive issues, and maybe it's more subtle, but maybe it's just kind of day to day, maybe you see some guys, Logan Webb's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, thrown to a guy who's been able to really kind of move around back there and get his sinker and his changeup in the right spot. And so I think that'll be something to watch. And then the other thing that we always watch when something like this happens, and it hasn't happened with Joey Bart necessarily, and it hasn't happened with like Luis Matos, but like you watch Kyle Harrison in Milwaukee and go like, they figured it out. And whether it was injury or something else, the Giants couldn't quite get him back to that point. And I think the fear with something like this is that Patrick goes to Cleveland and turns into the player that we had hoped he would become, which is just a somewhat usable offensive piece, not an offensive guy who you just feel like he hits like a pitcher, and then continues to win Gold Gloves, because I think he probably will continue to win Gold Gloves. He's really good defensively, and you can, as much as people might be frustrated with everything else, he's really, really good defensively. And so that would be, I guess, where you regret it is if he wins a couple more Gold Gloves and he starts to hit a little bit. And then I think you have the conversation of like, just how could you never get through and never figure it out offensively? Because we do see something you and I talk about a lot is like, he has like the greatest 2-minute Giants highlight reel of all time, right? Like
incredible reel. Yeah. Just like when the big moment happens, no matter what his OPS, his batting average, his RBIs are, when he's at the plate there, you can see it going right.
There's a 2-minute reel of just, you're showing all his defensive highlights and him getting a couple Gold Gloves. And then you show the walk-off against Pittsburgh, the walk-off inside the park home run, the walk-off grand slam, the 3-run homer this year. And you just go like, holy crap, this has got to be one of the best 10 players in baseball. So I think that's always been the frustrating thing for Giants fans and for the Giants and for us at times. And it's why I always still kind of believed in the talent. Like, this is a first-round talent who every once in a while just shows like he made it look so easy, that 3-run homer earlier this year. Like that was such a no doubter, and pimped it. And it was like, where is that? Like, where
would have never guessed what that man's stat line was just based on that swing.
And I think that's always the thing with Patrick, is it was like, is that in there like 7 times a year? Like if it's in there 7 times a year, you are a down ballot MVP candidate.
Yeah.
So that is the fear with something like this, is he's 26 years old. And what if something clicks and he's one of the best catchers in baseball and you traded him away before he even hit arbitration? But
at the very least, you traded him away to the American League and got him. You didn't get him up in our hair for the next decade.
Yeah, maybe he's doing it to the Dodgers in the World Series. So
hey, that's called 10 steps ahead.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, that's why all these things, I think this is in a much more different, like last year when we did the Devers emergency pod 11 months ago, it's like, had to do it, had to make the trade. For me, this is more of, I think, disappointment that they were never able to figure it out here with Patrick, and that it ended up where they're at here, and a lot of mystery about the future. So this is one.
Is this a similar feeling that you had when Joey Bart came to an end in San Francisco, or is this a little more surprising?
No, I mean, Joey, we knew the roster crunch and Tom Murphy and all that. And I get you can include that as part of this here, that they had at one point Joey Bart and Patrick Bailey, and it looks like nobody would have a better catching situation in the 2020s than the San Francisco Giants. And they signed Tom Murphy for some reason, and Joey has to leave. And look, he hasn't been great in Pittsburgh this year. But there's a lot of value in young catchers and young cheap catchers. And
Alex, but now the Giants have Daniel Susac and Jesus Rodriguez, and it looks like nobody will have a better catching situation in the 2020s than the San Francisco Giants.
They might be in a great situation, and that's, Buster comes out as a big winner, and Zach and their pro scouting people and Hottie Rod and all them, and Paul Bien and Jeremy Shelley, everyone who does all this. If you look up at the end of the year and it's like, hey, you know what? Jesus hit 290 and Daniel Susac kept hitting bombs, and you have these two 24-year-olds going back and forth, and the defense was fine, and they figured it out, then you're the big winners here. But this is more of a, there are moves like the Joey Bart one, you go like, there's nothing. Like, what are you going to do? He reached the end of the line here. He's out of options. You have two catchers.
Yeah.
Rafi Devers, it's like you have to make that trade. No brainer. This is more of a, you didn't have to go down this path. They went down this path. We'll see if they're correct.
Yeah.
And I don't think we want to call anyone a winner or a loser of this trade on May 9th, other than I'm sure Patrick personally is very happy. But it's going to be fascinating to follow over the next five months. And I'll give you a loser of this trade. The Oakland A's let Daniel Susac go to keep Austin Wins, who I think got DFA'd this week. And now down the road, the San Francisco Giants are handing it over to him. So
Yep. All right, let's end it with, just as we blow the foghorn for Patrick Bailey in farewell, number one favorite Patrick Bailey moment in the Giants uniform. I mean, I think I'll go first because I think the inside the Parker has to be it. Just that crazy bounce. Obviously, it looked like it was going to be a game-changing hit either way, but the way it played out, the way the catcher at the end of the game on catcher's legs, goes all the way around four bases on something like that. That is a moment I will never forget.
That's up there. Since you went with that, I'll go with the slam off of Tanner Scott last year.
Yeah.
And just, there's a special place for everybody who does that to the Dodgers.
Yep.
And we still every once in a while joke about Guillermo Quiros doing that to the Dodgers like 12 years ago. So I'll say the Dodger moments that he had, and I'll just say, on a personal level, I think I enjoyed covering him. I think he's a good dude and extremely committed to his family, and that's the most important thing in his life. So I wish him the best. I hope it works out for him with Stephen Vogt. He's on my list of guys, so I'm like, I hope this all works out for you, because he's always been good time-wise with us in terms of doing interviews, and everything that was asked of him, it just didn't work out here.
What game was it? This is so online and niche. I'm glad I'm getting this in at the very end of this episode. But what Patrick Bailey game was it where some national writer or other team's writer tweeted out someone named Patrick Bailey just hit a go-ahead home run, and everyone was like, someone named? That guy's like quite notably good at a lot of stuff.
I believe it was the New York Mets.
Yes,
Anthony Como, I think. So yeah, he had a great sense of humor about that afterwards and kept tweeting someone named. And I think we came on here and I was like, I do that too. So there were really some big moments. I think that's my defining. I'll end with this. We talked about a fair amount. That's just going to be my defining thing with Patrick Bailey, is someone could put together 2 minutes of just unbelievable Patrick Bailey, and you go, this guy's face is going to be on the side of the building for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And now it's headed to Cleveland.
I'm always very interested in that element too. Patrick Bailey's face is in a lot of places. It's around the ballpark. It's on banners. It's on like beer cans at the brewery across McCovey Cove. And I always wonder what Saturday morning looks like for like the graphics department.
Yeah. I mean, I have this bobblehead. I moved it up in the they've handed out multiple Bailey bobbleheads in the last couple of years. So
yeah,
it's a big one. I mean, it is it kind of ended up, it wound up in a weird place here, but you go back a year and a half, he's a foundational piece and no longer is.
Yeah. All All right. Well, thanks for listening to Alex and I process and digest this breaking news brought to you by Toyota. We'll be back for another episode Monday morning after the Pirate series. In the meantime, go check out Kywin's social media, learn all about our new friend, Tugboat Wilkinson. Give us 5 stars, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Keep an eye on NBC Sports Bay Area for more articles and updates about this trade. Anything else, Alex?
Yeah, I'll have a story coming up soon with some behind the scenes stuff on what happened here. And I will say, whenever something like this happens, I get text messages, I get a ton of mentions from people who go, emergency pod coming up. You and I, Saturday morning, we're happy to do this.
Absolutely.
If you're one of those people, though, and you have not left 5 stars, like, that's the least you can do for the emergency pod.